Hi guys. So I'm back after a while. Sorry, holidays were a little busy, but we're back to reading recipes of life from Free Poker. So yeah, so that's been a little while. Oh, almost forgot the other thing. Haha. My cat is playing with my headphones. Uh, let me see if I can show you. Oh, calm down, kitten. She's cranky. This is Arena. She's my kitty. Can you? Oh, nope. Yeah. So this is Arena. She's a good girl. Okay. Yep. All right. So here we go. Alrighty. Mike was one of the people. Hang on. Kitty's still being there. Mike was one of the people who stood out at the Miracle Mile games. For some reason, he was always, and I mean always, watching TV on his iPod. He had it set up with a strap around his neck, spare batteries, and his headphones. He really didn't pay attention to the game unless he wanted to harass another player. He was almost as bad as Anthony. Mike pretended to play it pretty cool, but he would antagonize people every chance he got. He wasn't loud like Anthony was, or as cross, but he was just cruel. One night at a home cash game, Mike was antagonizing Jim, who was close to Slick's size, at 6'4". Jim was not only tall, but was a trucker by profession, so he was a big guy. I'm a big guy too, and I wouldn't want to tangle with him. Mike pushed Jim to the edge, which wasn't smart, especially since it was after 1 a.m. and Jim was drinking beer, like a man in the desert drinks water. It didn't end well for Mike. We all saw it coming, but only a couple of us were able to collect our chips before the table literally went flying. After that, it was pandemonium. Jim had a hold on Mike before any of us could really react. Players, like the cards, were going everywhere. Some folks were driving down the streets, diving down the stairs to get out of the way, and one person climbed through the window into the kitchen. The host, Alan, was trapped behind the table. Jim already had Mike and picked him up out of the chair, raising his fist, ready to pummel him. Mike looked horrified at his blunder, let go all over the rug. We were able to get to Jim before he hit Mike, so carnage and assault charges were avoided. Jim was banned from this game and warned not to drink at another home games he went to. Mike was banned from 2 different games that night. It wasn't the first time this had happened, though it was the first time he actually made a mess of himself. He never lived that down. The most frustrating thing we had to deal with after the table was overturned was having to figure out who had what. John and I had our hole cards in our pockets, but no one really trusted that we didn't pick up spares off the floor. After about an hour of arguing, everyone got their original buy-in back. And like I said, she's causing trouble. Gotta love my kitty. Alright, the chips were put away, and it was a long while before Alan had any more cash games. One time at the Miracle Mile quarterly game, Slick had a decent stack of chips. After the second break, and like I said, she's causing trouble. Give me a minute. Arena! I love you, kitten, but stop. You're going to stay right here if you're going to continue to cause issues. And was ready to make a run at the final table. 2 hands later, he was up. He was telling me later that he had been outplayed on the hand that knocked him out. He was so busy paying attention to his own hand and not what was the best hand possible on the table. Slick said he got beat by a poor player that showed his tails to the world. It was easy to spot that he was holding the nut flush and he should not have called him. Slick realized it the second the other player flipped over his cards. As was his custom, Slick said, "Nice hand," and this time he meant it because of the community cards. This is where the Hold'em game is different from other poker games. It's a bit like playing chess. If you are not 3 steps ahead of what all the possibilities are at the table, you will find yourself on the outside looking in. Slick smiled as he always did when he left the table, but I knew this was different by the determined look on his face as he walked towards me. That night changed the way we would both play Texas Hold'em in the future. Slick waited for me at the next break and said I should have seen what that guy had before I went all in. He is a weak player and I wasn't watching the whole table. If our goal is to play for real money someday, that can't happen. Are you free for dinner tomorrow night? The plan was to have dinner with Slick and his wife, and then the 2 of us would go to the living room table and practice playing different hands and positive position playing. As always, it was great to see Slick's wife, and she always made incredible meals. There it is. That night was no exception. Chicken parmesan and key lime pie for dessert. I wondered if they'd rent me a room. I'd pay for this kind of cooking. We set up an 8-player game and dealt all the cards up so we could see what possible scenarios that could play out. Of course, we could not simulate the looks and actions of tails of the other players, but we could see what hands could develop from having all the cards dealt face up. We reviewed the hands from different poker books, always starting with the book Super System, to see the best way to play the whole cards. Doyle Bolson once said that with a pair of aces, you either win a small pot or lose a big pot. The longer you play Hold'em, the truer that statement becomes. After playing out many scenarios and going over a few new strategies, we felt we were ready to play another tournament, but not at the Mile yet. We were going to try a different place. First, Slick asked me to find a free game at a bar that we probably would never go to. We were going to try out some of the strategies we had worked through. I found a game in Arvada on Saturday that started at 1 p.m. It was a nice place with a good setup, as was normal at most places. The players knew one another and we were the strangers walking into their domain. We were greeted warmly by most of the players and found our way to our assigned seats. The regulars were more open and conversational than other places we had been, and it made sitting at the table more enjoyable. A few asked us how we found the bar, and our answer was that we just wanted to try a different place. We didn't tell anyone that we were never planning on coming back, or that we were about to try new betting strategies. We didn't really care if we won or lost. This was all about putting our theory and practice to the test. The minute the cards were in the air, Slick and I were more aggressive than our usual betting. We went into the game with the motto, either the hand is good enough to raise, or we fold the hand. We didn't play... Kitty. We didn't play any family plots, and we were careful not to be the knuckleheaded all-in players that are just a nuisance at the table. We both easily made it to the first break, and Slick commented that he liked the idea of folding or raising. I agreed for the most part, but I wasn't a fan of holding. I still liked seeing the flop if the blinds were small, and I like to believe that Lady Luck is on my side. We both made the final table and heard the words that we were looking for. Players, welcome to the final table and good luck. We knew that because we made the final table at a free poker game, it didn't mean we were ready for the World Series of Poker. But it did mean that we knew we were getting better at the nuances of the game. We kept up our aggressive betting, and within 15 minutes there were 4 of us left. As the dealer was ready to deal the next hand, one of the players said, "Just a minute, please. I want to talk to the table." The dealer knew what was about to happen. So he put the deck on the table. It's the kitty. I don't know why she's doing that, but she is. All right. Okay. With his hands flat on either side, so we could see he wasn't messing with the deck. The player, an older gentleman, suggested we chop the top 4 payouts, which consisted of a total of 125 and 2 free meals. We quickly decided the money would be split up as 35 for the chip leader, and the other 3 players would get 30 each. Slick and I told the other 2 players at the table they could have the free meal vouchers. Done. We had accomplished our mission and felt like we had made some big strides with our game. We had a new strategy that worked, and we're looking forward to Thursday night at the Miracle Mile to have a shot at the final table. Hold'em has a way of humbling players just when you think you're really good, or worse, get cocky and have the game figured out. You will get blindsided. This happened to us next Thursday when we tried our new strategy. The rays were filled at the Miracle Mile. We were both out before the first break. Kitty being psycho today, I think. It was time for more practice. Once we were even, bought a TV tray on a road trip. Brought a TV tray on a road trip with us. It was a 3-hour drive one way. And when I plopped in the passenger seat with the tray and deck of cards, Slick was puzzled, but was on board, with running hands all the way to our destination, and a good portion of the way back. Once I showed him that I planned on laying out cards on the tray and discussing possibilities. Of course, we needed breaks from constantly running hold'em hands and discussing options at home. Break time consisted of chips from great poker moves. We didn't have that on the road, so we told bad jokes and quoted movie lines instead. Slick and I agreed that Randers is the best poker movie ever, and we could quote the entire movie, so we didn't watch that one at practice sessions, but we had no problem quoting lines from it when we were on the road. We also loved the movie Maverick, and had seen it many times before, but the final poker scene made Slick crazy, and he couldn't just watch it without commenting. There are so many things wrong with this scene, it is a total and utter insult to anyone that has played poker. He was referring to the scene with 3 players left on the table. The commander, the bad guy, and Maverick. The game is 5-card draw. The commodore called 2 pairs. Then he says 2 pairs of 8s, which mean he actually had 4 of a kind. If you would call 2 pairs in most games, that is what you have to play, not 4 of a kind. And it is a way to have the other players not like you. It is a total Anthony move. The bad guy draws 2 cards to straight flush, and then the topper, Maverick, draws 1 card and gets a royal flush for the win. great movie, but the last poker hand scene is a little hard to watch if you know anything about poker. Another great poker movie that we watch is Molly's Game. It is a true story, and it is fascinating to watch the high rollers and how they play and win and lose hundreds and of thousands of dollars. We are not sure how many times or how many hours we practiced. We do know it made us more solid players. Alrighty, here we go. Oh, and this is by Jake Jaggerson and Matt Goodwin. This one. Even though things were going well for the Miracle Mile on Thursday night Texas Hold'em, TJ was always trying to make it a better experience for the players, and of course he wanted to attract more players. The truth was, it really didn't matter what he or the bar did. It wasn't going to attract many more players than already showed up for the game. The players just wanted to play cards and have a drink in a safe environment. They weren't interested in anything fancy. If they were, they would not be at the Miracle Mile. TJ hurt his brain by thinking of an idea to have an Elvis impersonator at one of the Thursday games. He thought it was a genius stroke and promoted it for a month by making announcements at the Thursday night games leading up to Elvis night and sending emails to everyone on their weekly specials for the week. He would tell everyone if they ever thought about inviting a friend with them, Elvis night was the perfect time. He wanted to give an extra $200 worth of chips to anyone that brought in any kind of Elvis memorabilia, but that got squashed by the owner. Elvis night arrived, and TJ was beside himself with excitement and anticipation of an overflowed crowd of players that the bar would need to borrow seating from the dart area to accommodate all the new players. As the regular players checked in for their coveted 1 point towards the quarterly game, he was greeting them and saying it was going to be a great night. No sign of any new players anywhere. They had moved the stage that they used for weekend bands closer to the poker tables. The bar had handmade posters that said, "Welcome to Elvis Night at the Miracle Mile." TJ was hiding Elvis in some back room or in the kitchen until he was announced. To the crowd at exactly 7 p.m., TJ yells, "Dealers, shuffle up and deal," and the Miracle Mile is excited to present the one and only king of rock and roll, Mr. Elvis Presley. Starting the game and introducing Elvis at the same time was not a good idea. Let me make it clear, it was a terrible way to start the evening. A few people applauded and the rest were looking at their hold cards, already into playing their first hand of the night. It took Elvis a few minutes to make his way to the stage. This was definitely not the cool, total stud Elvis from the 50s and 60s. This was the bloated Elvis from the mid-70s. It looked like he was a huge fan of Nick's Cafe and was all too aware of the Fool's Gold Elvis Presley sandwich with extra bacon. He was wearing a white jumpsuit with a couple of buttons missing and had a fake gold necklace around his neck that were getting caught in his back chest hair. To make matters worse, he had to set up with a boombox-looking thing plugged into an amplifier. He pressed the play button on his queasy boombox, and the Miracle Mile was transformed into karaoke night, but not in a good way. I am not sure of that one word. I'm guessing some type of boombox. Elvis started off by saying it was great to be at the Miracle Mile. After the first song, he did a laughable impression again, not in a good way, of Elvis saying thank you very much. But Slick's impression was way better than this guy. It was hard to tell who hated him worse, the younger players that never listened to Elvis, or the older players that did. The singer was terrible, and nobody could hear the dealers over the loud noise. Forget about concentrating on the game. After the third song, nobody was ever remotely paying attention or applauding anymore, Sam signaled to TJ that he wanted to talk to him during the worst rendition of Jailhouse Rock ever heard on the planet. You could see TJ nodding his head as Sam talked to him, and after Jailhouse Rock, TJ went to the edge of the stage, had a little chat with Elvis, and within minutes, Elvis had left the building. I asked Slick what Sam said to TJ, and he said, "We will take up a collection to get rid of this guy right now. It is a distraction for the players and is a very bad look for you and the Miracle Mile." TJ said no need to take up a collection. He is going right now because everyone liked and respected TJ. The Elvis impersonator was never brought up again, not even in a teasing way. It was like it never happened, and that was probably best for everyone. We weren't quite ready to move to playing only paid games, so it was likely that we would be there for the game the week of Christmas. We didn't know what to expect. Most of the bars I frequented for karaoke or went to meet friends had parties, so Big Slick and I figured there would be some kind of event at the Mile. We found out right after Thanksgiving. When we showed up for the game the week after Thanksgiving, there were posters everywhere proclaiming the Christmas potluck. They said to bring a dish to share, make sure it's edible, and does not have edibles in it, for a fun night with your poker family. There was a sign-up list next to the poker sign, and so no one would miss it. Families were invited as well, and I looked at Slick and said that this must be a pretty big party if people bring in their families. Sam appeared like magic behind us, startling me, but not Big Slick, as he started to tell us about the party. It was big, and it was a tradition, so big that a few years ago they had started to shut the bar down for the evening to accommodate everyone. Drinks weren't free, and the kitchen was open, but even the staff participated in the event. Mixed in with our flyers were the flyers for the dart teams and pool tournament teams. All the parties were on different days, and it seemed like the bar really went out of their way to keep their regulars. I was impressed. A couple karaoke bars I knew would set up a buffet, but it was business as usual for them for the night. Then Sam hit us with the news that sealed the deal. Sev, the tall, curly-haired guy, was a baker. He would bake traditional Swedish cookies and desserts for everyone. The last few years he showed up with his family as they hauled in 5 to 6 large serving trays loaded down with a couple hundred cookies and a few dozen pastries. The fare included Swedish almond buns, traditionally known as Makobo. Don't ask me to pronounce it. I stick with almond buns. Cinnamon buns and Swedish cinnamon rolls. Sam mentioned that Ingrid was going to bring some traditional German strudel this year. I was sold and pretty much drooling at this point. I didn't have anyone to bring at that time, but I knew a few ladies I could ask and find a date for the night. Big Slick said he would bring his wife, Kate, to the festivities. As the day grew closer, the list actually filled up and had to have a second page added. I was seriously impressed with how many people signed up to bring dishes. It looked like the menu to an upscale restaurant rather than the usual bland dishes people promised to bring. There was roast pork, barbecue beef, smoked salmon. Wait, that's only what I wanted them to bring. Most actually were bringing the regular potluck fare, much like you would bring to a church potluck. There were dishes like au gratin potatoes, tuna casserole, jello salad, fruit salad, chips and dip, and rolls or bread from the store, and snails. Snails were on the list, scratched out only to be replaced with sardines and mustard sauce. Good old Anthony strikes again. TJ warned him not to bring them after he showed up last year with 6 tins of the smelly entree and opened them all at the table with the rolls and crackers. After opening them, he stood there and started eating them while people were trying to fill their plates. Talk about an appetite suppressant. Apparently, someone had the decency to move them to their own small table, and shortly after that, they vanished. Completely. Anthony wasn't happy and wanted to be reimbursed for his loss. Typical Anthony. When the night of the Christmas party arrived, Sev and family showed up with 5 large trays of goodies, as expected. Ingrid brought the strudel, and I made my bread pudding. As people started filling in, tables filled up. There were 4 large tables for the food, 2 for desserts, and the rest of the area was set up for general seating, visiting, and eating. The bar provided tea, lemonade, and a few types of soda. Drinks were made at the regular price, which no one complained about, and the staff were being even more attentive than usual. Wendy, in particular, was hanging out and helping everyone she could. Being a single mom, any extra money was seriously appreciated. The tips for the waitresses were exceptionally generous that night. All of the regulars showed up. Steve had some brochures with his particular set of wares to sell at a discount. Mike, the TV guy, brought his girlfriend, and of course she had an iPad as well. They watched different shows and talked little. Then there was Anthony. True to his word, he actually showed up with sardines and capers. TJ and a few others saw him start to open the sardines and headed over to stop the madness. It was made very clear that if he continued, he would not be welcome, and he would not be able to sample anything. Steve brought, fortunately, Anthony had brought his girlfriend, which surprised more than a few people. Having someone willing to live with him full time and put up with him was pretty hard to believe. When she found out what he was doing, she was not happy with him at all. Between her loudly berating him and the threat of no dessert, he was finally convinced not to subject anyone at the party to his treats. His girlfriend made sure everything he brought was moved back to his vehicle right away. That night, the reputation of his girlfriend went up more than a few notches with everyone at the party, and we were conspiring on how we could convince her to join him at the games, if for no other reason than to keep him in check. About 10 minutes before the food lines were supposed to open, TJ got up to the raised platform and announced that Elvis was in the building. This caused much confusion for the families, but the players who were there the night Elvis showed up had a pretty extreme reaction. Sam looked very unhappy. Slick was just shaking his head while my eyes were as big as dinner plates. We couldn't believe TJ would attempt this tonight of all nights. Everyone was incredulous, and it took less than 2 seconds for everyone to be silent at this revelation. A few seconds later, much to the amusement of TJ, the place was in an uproar. Complaints were flying, and people were threatening to take their dishes home and leave immediately. TJ laughed, which caused more confusion. He explained that this was just a joke and Elvis was not coming back. Relief constricted, and a myriad of emotions swept through the crowd. Eventually, someone chuckled, and this started the good-natured laughter that ensued. TJ thanked everyone for bringing dishes and proclaimed everything looked delicious and told us to dig in. Tempered by his girlfriend, Anthony didn't try to barge in line, and would have been rather pleasant if not for his cross language around the kids. Big Slick, his wife Kate, Sam, Ingrid, myself, and my date all got in line and were looking at all the food laid out before us. Everyone was enjoying themselves and the conversations were pleasant. There was no poker that night, only bar friends getting together and having a good time. Anthony was relatively well behaved since his girlfriend was with him, so that was even he was relatively pleasant to be in the same room with. Between Sev's baking, Ingrid's strudel, and my bread pudding, the desserts were empty before the main course plates. It was a good night, enjoyed by all, and one of the best memories of the Miracle Mile Big Slick and I had. The other thing that really stood out that night was the surprise Sam and Ingrid had for us. Sam invited us to a home game at his place. He assured us that it would be a small crowd and cash only. He and Ingrid would provide the drinks and the food. They were inviting Sam's friends over, plus Slick and I. This was a great honor for us because we knew Sam didn't invite anyone from the Miracle Mile to his games. He would show up to others, but never invited others to his place. I looked at Slick and we agreed and thanked them for the invitation. The game was set for a week after New Year's. Big Slick and I were suddenly looking forward to a dreary winter night that would be spent with great friendship and laughter with a person we both admired. Matacumba. I think that's one of the dishes Steve brought. I'm probably botching the name. Ingredients: 1 dollop. Oh boy. Okay, that's because that's in Swedish. Wait, that's Swedish. Let me try again. 50 grams almond, 1.75 ounces. 12 buttered almonds. 125 gram butter, 4.5 ounces. 2 pound sugar, just over a third cup. 1 egg. I think it's 1 pound yogurt. Half cup. 5 pounds flour, 2.1 cups. 2 teaspoons Harshun salt. Egg, chopped almond, and pearl sugar for decoration. Directions: heat to over 200 degrees Celsius, 395 degrees. Chop the almonds and grate the batter around and put aside. Whisk sugar and butter, add egg, yogurt to the sugar mixture. Mix flour and Harshun salt and add together with the almonds to the mixture. Make 20 rectangular cookies and put on a plate. Cover with oven paper. Whisk the remaining egg and brush on the cookies. Sprinkle chopped almond and pearl sugar over the cookies. Bake for 12 minutes. And the word I can't pronounce is spelled Hartshorn. Salt. And I think I'm going to end that there. Thank you all for joining, and I will see you next time.